You know that feeling when you're in a situation that feels completely overwhelming, and then someone shows you a different way of looking at it that just changes everything? Well, according to a sermon by Pastor Stephen Wilhoit, the opening of the Gospel of John is meant to do exactly that, to give us a radical new perspective on life itself. All right, let's get into it. So the sermon kicks off with this really dramatic story from the Old Testament, from the book of 2 Kings. There's a servant to the prophet Elisha, and he wakes up one morning, walks outside, and is hit with this absolutely terrifying sight. His city is completely surrounded by a massive hostile army. We're talking soldiers, horses, chariots, the whole 9 yards. And of course, he panics. I mean, who wouldn't? He runs back to his master, Elisha, and asks this desperate question: what are we going to do? From his point of view, a reality based only on what he can see with his own eyes, they are hopelessly outnumbered and totally doomed. But Elisha, he's completely calm. He tells his servant not to be afraid, saying, "Those who are for us are more than those who are against us." And then he prays that God would open the servant's eyes. And just like that, in an instant, the servant sees a whole new reality. The mountains are filled with an unseen army of horses and chariots of fire, all there to protect them. His perspective was totally transformed. This idea of a new reality-altering perspective is really the heart of this whole thing. The sermon argues that the opening of John's gospel does for us what Elisha did for his servant. It opens our eyes to a deeper reality by answering three of life's biggest, most fundamental questions. So what are these big three questions? Well, they're basically the building blocks of any worldview, right? Where do we come from? What's the problem with the world? And how do we fix it? The prologue to John's Gospel is apparently structured to answer all three. So let's tackle that first one. Our origin. Where do we come from? John starts his account with a phrase that would have been impossible to miss for his original audience: in the beginning. It's a direct echo of the very first sentence of the entire Bible, and believe me, that connection is key. And this is where we see a subtle but really profound difference. Genesis 1 starts with, "In the beginning, God," but John 1 starts with, "In the beginning was the Word." The sermon's point is that John is doing this on purpose. He's layering his story on top of Genesis to give us a richer, deeper understanding of creation itself. John then defines this word for us in 3 quick steps. First, the word was there in the beginning, which tells us the word is eternal. Second, the word was with God, which introduces a distinction. They're separate in some way. And third, the word was God, which establishes their identity. So a distinction and an identity at the exact same time. This is a classic picture of the Christian concept of the Trinity, one God existing in 3 persons. So why the word? Well, think back to Genesis. How does God create? He speaks, and God said, "Let there be light." The sermon explains that this word is the Son of God, the very agent through whom God the Father speaks all of creation into existence. Now, the implications of this are just huge. It means literally everything was made through this word. It means the very ideas of life and light, we're talking physical, mental, and spiritual, all come from him. And if we are created through this word, then it follows that we are fundamentally dependent on him and accountable to him. And that, according to the sermon, is the answer to where we come from. Okay, but that brings up a really urgent second question. If that's our origin, if we were created through and for this divine word, then what has gone so wrong? Why is the world so often such a dark and painful place? According to the sermon, the core problem is this really tragic disconnect. The world, the creation that was made by the word, no longer even recognizes its own creator. There's a fundamental breakdown in the very relationship we were designed for. And John doesn't pull any punches here. He puts it so bluntly in this verse. The word came into the world he created, to his own people, and they did not receive him. The problem isn't just that people didn't know, it's that they actively rejected him. And that rejection, well, that's what the Bible calls sin. The sermon defines it as this fundamental rebellion against God that leaves us in a state of spiritual darkness. One theologian famously called the human heart a perpetual idol factory because it's always creating new things to worship instead of God. And the text is clear, there's no human-made cure for this condition. So that leads us right to the final and most hopeful question. If we were created through the word, and our problem is that we reject the word, what on earth could the solution possibly be? It's brilliant because right after stating the problem of rejection, John gives us the solution: receiving. He writes that to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, something incredible happened. They were given the right to become children of God. And it's really crucial to see what the solution is not, according to this passage. It's not about trying harder or doing more good deeds or showing up to church more often. The foundation for the solution is way simpler and way more profound. It's all about belief. It's about trust. So the solution is to trust, to receive, and to believe in this word. And the sermon really emphasizes that even this faith isn't something we can just drum up on our own. The Bible describes it as a gift from God, one that allows us to be adopted into his family and restores that broken relationship. All right, this is where it all comes together. This is the climax of the passage, where this new perspective becomes totally visible, totally tangible. How is this solution actually made possible for us? I mean, this has got to be one of the most famous, most mind-blowing lines in the entire Bible. The eternal Word took on human flesh. He became a real person, Jesus Christ, and he lived right here among us. The divine became touchable, seeable, accessible. And the sermon draws this powerful contrast here. You had the law given through Moses. That was God's word written on stone tablets. It was good and it was perfect for showing us the problem of sin, but it couldn't actually empower anyone to obey it. But then you have Jesus, the Word made flesh, who brought grace and truth. He didn't just diagnose the problem. He is the solution, with the power to actually transform our hearts of stone. So this event, the incarnation, it's the ultimate proof of this new perspective. The Word who spoke the universe into existence, the one with authority over absolutely everything, is now here, visible, knowable. God is no longer hidden away in a temple. And John wraps up this whole opening section with this stunning summary. He says, for all of human history, no one has ever seen God. But now, the Word, the Son, who is right there with the Father, has come and made him known. Jesus is the perfect explanation of who God is. So, we end up right back where we started, don't we? With perspective. If our origin, our deepest problem, and our only solution all center on this one figure, the Word made flesh, then how does seeing the world through that lens change everything? What does that new perspective actually show you?